Hey, I'm Vicente Cruz and welcome to my channel. In this video, you're going to learn about how I got into design school. I'll be going over some general uni application tips that I used to get myself into this design/art school, Central St. Martin's. I'll also be covering some tips about the personal statement, the portfolio, and the interview. And this is all based off of my own experiences. So before we get started, here's a little background about myself. I graduated from high school in 2019, receiving a 33 on my IB diploma. I then continued on to study product design engineering at Loughborough University. However, at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, I realized that the course wasn't exactly what I wanted to be on, and that's how I ended up here at Central St. Martin's. If you'd like to hear more about why I transferred, let me know in the comments. So what I want to do in this video are three things. First is share some tips I learned from my own application. Second is show you the portfolio techniques and advice that worked for me. And third, this is more specific to applicants of UAL, but I'll be giving you some more specific insights into how I approached the interview and what it was like. So from the beginning of the application, I made sure to be clear with myself on a few things. Why exactly I wanted my top choice uni, which was Central St. Martin's, how going there would benefit me, how I would benefit the university, and why it was the best decision for me going forward. Having ready answers to these questions really helped me build a solid foundation upon which I could build the rest of my application. So then I looked at my courses selection criteria, analyzed which ones best applied to me, and came up with examples for them. This helped me with understanding what UAL was looking for and whether it was the right fit for me. Finding personal examples of the selection criteria really helped with me figuring out what are the strongest projects I should talk about in my portfolio, interview, and personal statement. For example, as corroborated by my Moresby test results, I've got a pretty high spatial ability. This means one of my strengths, according to the criteria, is a good visual and 3D skill. I then used a list of design projects that I had brainstormed earlier to figure out which ones best exemplified that strength of high visual and 3D skill. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far and are considering subscribing, keep in mind that this is one of my first YouTube videos and I'm still finding my niche. However, if you did like the video, do leave a like on the video so I know what to create more of. So before even starting my portfolio, I just brainstormed all of my design projects that I had kind of done in the past, and this is the list I've made. And so as you can see, the pieces with the red stars next to them are the ones I figured were the strongest, taking into account my selection criteria strengths as well as the ones that would help give the best all-around picture of me. Before opening Keynote and starting to design the portfolio, I created a really solid outline where I made sure each element in the outline was necessary and informative, not just about the projects, but also about me. To do this, however, I researched and studied everything I could from UAL's website and student forums. And by research, I mean highlighting and annotating snippets of websites like I did here. I also analyzed the types of portfolios I liked on Dribbble and Behance. Since I was applying to 5 different UCAS unis, I used that research to sort of make a first draft of portfolios that I'd send out to my backup schools. I was able to do this because I got lucky and I had to submit to UAL last. So a quick backstory. When I applied to Loughborough back in 2018/2019, I didn't put too much effort into my application. As a result, I was rejected from my top choice. At that time, it was Imperial, and frankly now I'm actually a bit glad that I didn't get in because having to leave Imperial would have been so much harder than leaving Loughborough. How does this relate to my application this time around? Well, this time I planned ahead, and thanks to advice from Toby Wilcox, I made sure I planned enough time for me to reach out to students at UAL so I could get their advice and feedback on things I was doing. This 2-step outline and portfolio revision process really helped me fine-tune the final portfolio that I'd send to CSM. I was able to get some really specialized feedback into how effective my work was at communicating my ideas relative to CSM's criteria and what improvements can be made to it. So to wrap up the portfolio section, I'll leave you with 3 main tips that I think were crucial to the success of my portfolio. First is quality over quantity. I made sure to cut down on fluff and really make sure that every element in the portfolio, every image, every sort of text box, paragraph, etc., really served a purpose, ideally 2 or more. I also made sure to get feedback from relevant people. Asking your parents is cool, but I was better off asking people who are already in the field, professors, graduates, and current students. Third is that UAL really wants to see you in the portfolio. What I mean by this is that they really want to see who you are as a designer. So show major decision points and influences. This means showing your unfinished work as well. especially if the final product looks nothing like its development. This shows agency and decision making as a designer. Also, keep the theme and layout of your portfolio consistent throughout. The admissions officer should be able to follow a story throughout your individual projects and throughout your portfolio as a whole. It doesn't necessarily have to have a beginning, conflict, and resolution, but a strong narrative. For example, I wanted to show my story as a designer, starting with my experienced background in graphic design, then moving into my inexperienced background and exploration of design in a 3D space, then introducing my visual and 3D skills in terms of my strong 2D graphic/visual background, and finally closing on further past passion projects to give the admissions officer a better sense of my character. If you've made it this far, congratulations, we're almost done. In a future video, or if you're watching this later on, I'll add a video card up here where I go through the changes I made between the first and second draft, as well as how I created the whole portfolio. However, if you'd like a separate video about the interview, let me know in the comments below. Speaking of the interview, the interview is very much like a conversation about you as a designer, your works and your future. And I emphasize the word conversation. You can and should ask questions back, but you should also elaborate and lead on the interviewer to where you want to steer the conversation. You should also expect a few basic questions. So just doing a quick Google search and thinking, or better yet, listing down answers to those questions will really help strengthen your confidence and solidify your answers. This part shouldn't be hard at all, thanks to the brainstorming and outlining you had done at the beginning of your application. I was able to know who my interviewer was beforehand, so I was able to do a little bit of background research on them to see if there was anything I had in my portfolio or I could mention in my interview that might pique their interest. Luckily, the course leader who interviewed me had a background in transportation design, so I was able to intrigue him with my work for MH Customs, and I was able to go really in depth with that project. All in all, I was told the interview would last around 20 minutes, 15 minutes for me to go through my portfolio, all 28 pages of it, and 5 minutes afterwards for questions. However, this ended up not being the case for me, as I spent 20 plus minutes talking about the projects on my portfolio. My interviewer seemed to be quite engaged with my work on MH Customs, and once I got to the end of that project, he asked a question about the company, and I was able to really elaborate on and give him a taste of not just my design philosophy, but also my goals and ambitions. In the end, my interview lasted 49 minutes, and I think the fact that it went on for quite so long shows the interviewer's interest in me as a candidate. By the end, we were just talking about design in general, and I was asking questions that popped into my head about the course. So a few hours later, when I followed up with a question asking to see if he could show me something he had shown me earlier in the interview, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that he would be giving me an offer to study there. I think following up with the question afterwards further supported my case because it showed I was really keen on learning more about the college and course, and that further tipped the balance in my favor. So that's how I got into Central St. Martin's Product and Industrial Design course. I hope you learned something from this, and if you have, let me know in the comments what the best tip was. Thanks for watching, and thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. Thanks, Dave Lee. I don't have many videos out yet, but they'll show up here when I upload more. And if you've gotten this far, I'll leave you with a bonus tip. It can be daunting looking at the first page of your portfolio and really not knowing where to start. So if this is you, look at your favorite companies or artists or designers and use that as inspiration. Emulate who you admire.